Everybody ready? All right, camera speeding, and action.
Comfortable here, Sam. Sam Helmer. So is that German?
Dutch, actually.
Dutch. Deutsch?
No, like the Netherlands.
It's Deutschland? What is Deutschland?
I think that's Germany.
Is that Germany?
Yeah, like my dad's dad, I believe he was like a first generation American born, and his dad was like an immigrant from the Netherlands, is my understanding.
Okay.
And yeah, Helmer, one who helms.
One who helms.
That's what I like to say. I don't actually know what it means in Dutch, but like
one who helms, not one who wears a helm, but one who is at the helm.
Perhaps I prefer it. I got a lot of flack as a youth from a couple of kids. There, Sam Helmet Head.
Sam Helmet Head. Yeah. That's a very cool.
I was like, oh, thanks.
Cool. Yeah, that you're triggering me. I was very badly bullied as a young man myself. So that's appropriate because you are often at the helm.
These days,
team.
Yes, these days. Luckily, it turned out that way.
Okay, well, Sam Helmet Head. That is so mean. I hate that. I hate kid. Look, I actually love kids because I look at them and I go like, the innocence of youth, and you have no idea how fucking awful life is going to get for you. Like
yes,
and so everything's carefree and nice. But also, I hate how mean kids are. Like they're super mean. What is that?
Actually, I have some stories on that.
Oh.
So I don't have kids myself.
Uh-huh.
But before I moved to Vegas, I worked for a touring children's theater.
Really?
Pretty much fresh out of college. Yep. Traveled around the country, working. It's called Missoula Children's Theater, based out of Missoula, Montana.
Okay.
We would drive a little red truck from town to town. All the sets and things were loaded in the back of the truck, and we'd work with anywhere from like 12, well, sometimes less, to 60 kids, ages 5 through 18.
Stressing me out.
Kindergarten through senior year of high school. So I have a lot of stories about kids.
Wait, how young to senior?
5 to 18.
Oh, 5 to 18.
Kindergarten
18.
through senior high school.
That's a dynamic group.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, some of the towns we went to were so small, like they don't have theater programs, and their entire school district has 10 or 12 kids in the whole span from that age range, 5 to 18.
Yeah.
We go to rural towns in Montana, but also we went to Mississippi, Indiana, a number of cities in Colorado, a whole tour up and down the Highway 1 in California, which is really cool. But met lots and lots of kids. Learned lots of names. It was like one of the mandates of the program is that you learn every kid's name in your show, which sometimes is easy when there's only a handful, and sometimes is very challenging when you have, a max capacity cast. So lots of adventures with kids, and every week I was always happy to kind of give them back, and kind of influenced my decision as a full-grown adult. I'm probably not looking for kids.
Really? At all?
I had some there's some great kids out there, and honestly, sometimes they can, the really good ones can bail you out. Like, so spoilers, I'm not very good at memorizing lines. And one of the tour actors is always in the show, and the other one is kind of like the director.
Okay.
And whenever I was in the show, I was not very good because I just couldn't remember the silly lines, and it's like nursery rhymes and stuff, like silly things. But sometimes you have really smart, capable kids who can just totally bail you out, and you're just like, man, this show would not happen without this particular child.
Without little Johnny,
or
whatever. Or
there's a couple, that stood out to me. But yes, just meeting that many children from, as an adult, from that giant age range, and doing that for the span of 2 years, pretty much settled on I think I'm okay with kids. I've had a lifetime's worth of experience with kids, and I think I'm good.
Okay. Well, okay. Are you still good at memorizing names?
I like to think that I am. I work really hard at it because it was something that I had to do. Obviously it was part of the program. And honestly, now that I'm like a working professional in Vegas, it just feels like it's a respect thing. Like when you work with people a lot, you should probably at least learn their name and make an effort to remember their name.
Yeah.
And occasionally to use it. Like
Occasionally.
Hey, not just hey man or hey dude. It's like, hey John or hey James. Like,
yeah,
just so that they feel like they're part of the crew, and like they're seen, kind of.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, have you ever read How to Win Friends and Influence People?
I have not.
That is one of the first things that it says in that book. I think it's that book. That there's like a magical quality to memorizing someone's name, calling them by their name. It like mystifies them. It like really endears them to you. So that's probably a good skill to have.
I mean, I'm not into the the spiritual side of names and knowing names, true names and stuff like that.
True names, yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like it's important, and like I always appreciate it when somebody remembers my name.
Yeah.
I try to keep. I really like single syllable names. So like Rob, Sam, Joe.
Yeah.
Or if it's a long name, sometimes I like to just shorten it down to like a single syllable if I can.
Yeah.
Which doesn't always work. I don't know. Miranda doesn't, comes to mind. Doesn't really work that way.
Well, I always call Miranda Mimi because that's her
Mimi.
that's her Instagram name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like she must like this on some level. So we'll just go with that. What would you do with Muhammad? How would you?
Well, first I try to be respectful because obviously Muhammad is a very I mean I don't know if sacred name is the right word
just
for it.
Putting you in such an awful spot. What'd you do? What are you gonna do with that, Sam?
I'd probably
What's
say
up?
Muhammad.
You would probably say Muhammad. Okay.
Unless I was pretty tight with them, and then I don't know if they were cool with like Mo.
Mo.
Like,
Mo. Yeah, Mo.
I don't know if that would be cool. I honestly, I know it's like what the most popular or the most common name in the world or something, but I don't know. I don't think I know any Mohammeds.
Yeah. How do you feel about Muslims and Christianity and all? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. So Sam, what is your zodiac sign?
Gemini.
You're a Gemini. Wow. You are a Gemini. I wouldn't have put that on you, but I think getting to know you better. So the experience I have with Gemini is they're very extroverted people. And I think you kind of are that, but you don't start that way. Which I'm kind of the same way. Like when I get into a new group of people, I tend to, and I'm not saying you do this, I'm just saying what I do is I tend to be a little distant and kind of just observe from afar. And then because I'm determining, do I even like these people? Do I even, do I even have any affinity to connect?
Mm-hmm.
And then once I made up my mind, then it's like, then I'll kind of reveal myself and I can tend to be a little extroverted. And I think for you, it really depends on the context. So maybe that duality is kind of there for you. Like I feel like when we're working together, when you're directing, and also depending on where you're directing, like you will be like very outspoken and funny and kind of, witty and you have things to interject and say pretty much throughout the show. And other times, like when you're on camera, like I almost barely ever hear you at all on comms. So how do you feel about that?
Well, to get to the root of it, I've never felt like I'm an extrovert. I've always felt pretty introverted. I'm pretty good at, keeping to myself and being relatively quiet. But then, you can ask people, once I have an open mic all the time, like when I'm directing or TDing, like it's definitely a different me.
Yeah.
I'm more willing to, cause I don't know, I'm calling cameras and we're doing stuff, and then I'm talking what I'm doing, and I'm also talking what I'm thinking, which I wouldn't do if I didn't have like that hot mic all the time.
Right.
So yeah, you can ask, and obviously you've experienced it, but you can ask some people, and yeah, me with a hot mic in the director's chair is a lot different from me just sitting in the control room at a different spot where it's not really my job to be vocal. And also on the group thing, yes, I like to kind of I'm not very good with like large groups.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty good with small groups, or, just, one-on-one. I feel pretty comfortable and willing to, chat and stuff. But yeah, big groups, I don't always feel comfortable with. My voice doesn't project very well. When I talk normally, it's kind of in a lower register, and I tend to kind of mumble sometimes. And then sometimes people have a hard, like right now, I'm consciously trying to like project and like put my voice forward. Oh, sorry, I bonked the mic.
Don't mess up the equipment, Sam. I'll send you a bill.
Oh no. But I'm trying to be conscious of it right now. But like when I'm not thinking about it, I'm often just like people just don't hear me, so it's a little easier just to let them kind of talk, and then when there's a nice gap, I'll like kind of interject and hopefully with something funny. Not always.
Yeah, that sounds like having social graces. That sounds like just being adept at what conversation is like. Some people don't have that skill. Some people just fucking talk your ear right off and never let you get a word in.
Yeah, I know a few people like that, and sometimes it's better to just let them go because they don't always know, or recognize it. And even if you did, what are you gonna say? Hey, man, you talk too much. Like,
well, that's a very positive way to look at that, Sam.
I try.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and you know what? You are right. I mean, people shouldn't be written off. That's for sure. Like we do need to pay attention, especially people that have experience in our field or beyond our experience in the fields that we work in. Right? It is important. There's always something to be learned. So yeah, look at us. Just barreling through a barrier of wisdom. Barriers of ignorance into like the realms of golden wisdom and knowledge.
Golden realms of golden wisdom. That's nice.
All right, Sam. Top 3 MCs.
Oh man,
go. Quick, make it quick.
Oh jeez. Well, I'm not a huge hip hop guy, but I do have a story.
Oh, okay.
For this, it's not really a top 3, and honestly, if this doesn't make the cut of your interview, I just want you to know personally. This is like a silly story. So until I was about 10, I didn't really listen to music
at all.
Well, not at all. I didn't listen to like the radio or like popular music.
That's kind of similar to me. It's kind of the same deal. Go on.
So what I did listen to were video game soundtracks and jazz standards.
Oh yeah.
Till I was about 10 years old or so, and then my mom, who actually gave me most of those albums, was like, "All right, you need to listen to some real music. I'm gonna go buy you a CD. You have to promise to listen to it." I'm like, "Okay." It was the very first CD of like an actual artist that I ever owned. Will Smith, Big Willie style.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's.
I was like,
you are
Miami?
younger than me for sure. You are definitely younger than me.
Men in Black, getting jiggy with it. Like,
great album, Grammy award-winning album.
It was,
right? I think.
Probably.
Pretty sure.
Doesn't
matter. We don't need actual facts here.
Having Will Smith as my first, real music album, like I just, I started watching him doing acting and stuff, and I was a big Will Smith fan for a long time, mostly just because of that one album. But, I never really turned that into a love for hip hop or rap or honestly. So whenever a song comes on, like you remember for the Ignite, like it was very hip hop centric soundtrack for when they're working out, when they're warming up.
Yes.
You've already had him on the show, but Cortland he knows the words to all the songs. So honestly, we're eating, we're kind of in our downtime before the thing, and I just look over at Court and he's just like vibing and like he's got all the words, and I'm like, who's this guy? And he's like, oh, da 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 da. He can rattle me off all the facts. So I don't remember if Cortland gave you a top 3, but whatever he says is what I'm going to go with.
Okay, cool. You just go bail out.
I'm just gonna give it to him because he's the expert in the field, and I'm.
All right. Now he had some good choices. I think his top was Mac Miller, and Mac Miller's
great MC.
And from Pittsburgh. It sounds like you really genuinely agree with that. So funny story about that. My first CD, betraying my age here. That first CD that was ever bought for me, it was MC Hammer, Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him.
Nice.
Now, if you remember, I'm sure you remember the smash hit, Can't Touch This. Mm-hmm. So when I was a young child, I was the only child in my entire family. All my aunts and uncles, except for that's actually not true. My cousin Flora was born before me, but she and my uncle Mick lived in Colorado, so we didn't spend a whole lot of time with them. So around the family that did get together all the time, I was the only kid, because my mother's other brothers, my uncles, are all younger than her. So I would dance, apparently, the Hammer dance,
nice to like
in front of the whole family. So on my 30th birthday, they played the song, and then they all like started dancing and tried to get me to dance. And I don't dance. And I was mortified. I was horrified but it was very sweet at the
Oh.
same time. I've
Yeah,
never
that
been
sounds nice.
I've never been simultaneously mortified and in a living nightmare, but also like just so endeared and like loving my family for doing such a nice and sweet, thoughtful thing.
Was this when were you living in New York at the time, or is
Yeah,
this somewhere
yeah,
else? Is MC Hammer from New York?
I have no
Oh.
idea where MC Hammer is from. No idea. But great song. Can't touch this. Too Legit to Quit. Also great song. Also on that album.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's that. I remember that's when CDs came in the long book. You don't remember that. You don't remember that at all. Yeah. The CDs used to come in a book like that, like a menu.
Like
you
tall?
open it up. The CD's up top and like the track listing is underneath. Yeah, that didn't last too long. Then they started putting them in the jewel cases. Okay. So here's a question for you, Sam. You do a lot of different jobs. You also play a lot of different instruments. So where does that like diversity come from? That desire to like master multiple things, do multiple things?
That's actually something I've always had. When I was about, I started playing music when I was 4. I begged my parents to get me a violin.
Oh, really?
So I did I don't know if you're familiar with the Suzuki method, but it's like Suzuki was a Japanese composer guy who had this music theory. Like when you're young, if you listen to music, like classical music and stuff, and just like not revolve your whole life around it, but like have it a very strong part of your life, then it can enrich your life, from a very young age on. So I played violin for a few years, and then I kind of got bored with it because I felt like I was like, well, I kind of understand this. And then I spent most of elementary school, middle school, and junior high switching between different instruments. I'd play it for like a year, kind of figure it out, and then be like, all right, on to the next.
And these are all classical instruments.
So I went from violin to cello to alto saxophone, and then I eventually landed on the bassoon.
The bassoon?
Yes, sir, the bassoon.
Oh.
It was a large part of my identity for my junior high and high school years because I was the bassoon guy.
Bassoon guy, probably one of like what, one or two
I was
total
one
bassoon players?
until I was the only one until I was a junior, and then there was a sophomore below me who was the second bassoon. I was the bassoon section leader of 2, and
Well, you're the leader.
yeah, that's where it all started.
Yeah, this is where it started. A leader of a very, very small group of specifically talented people.
Yeah, yes, the bassoon is a very specific skill.
That is a specific skill.
Well, like I said, it was a large part of my identity for a lot of my formative years. And then as I moved on kind of from instruments and into like a professional, from college to professional life, like I like to know how everything works. I often I kind of had this mentality when I was working full time. I don't know if I'm supposed to say like company names and stuff, but I was working full time at Mandalay Bay as I was the video lead tech for the convention, like all the property stuff.
Was this for Mandalay Bay or for MGM?
This was for Encore. Encore Event Technologies at the time.
Okay.
It's now Encore Global. But as a lead, it was often my responsibility to lead a crew. We'd set up projectors, screens, breakout rooms, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I never really liked telling people what to do, but I liked to know how everything worked. And I liked to know that if there was an issue somewhere, I could figure it out. Or if somebody was having trouble with something, I could, help them troubleshoot it and get to the root of the problem. And that is really just expanding the net of, knowledge and information that you absorb, casting the wide net to bring back as much information. I love to learn. I love to do new things. I love to be challenged. And I love to have new experiences, and then also feel like when I say something, I know what I'm talking about. I've definitely been in situations where I think I know what I'm talking about, and then I say something, and then someone corrects me, and I'm like, wait, what? And then it's like, oh, mind blown. Like, actually, I didn't know that. But now I know what I don't know, and I'm going to go figure that out. And that's happened to me a lot over the years, to the point where I try not to say anything unless I know or have a pretty good idea of whether it's true or not. And then if I don't know, I love to be challenged on it. Like somebody will tell me, hey man, that's not actually how this works. It's kind of like this. Like I love that. Like I love somebody to tell me like, there's another way to do this. There's a better way to do this. There's 6 different ways to get to home plate, and, find the one that works best for you. And I just like to know the different routes and the different things, which is kind of culminated into, in the last couple of years, I've started directing and TDing for, local sports stuff. And same thing, like I like to know how everything works. Like there's definitely some spots in the control room that I'm still a little don't 100% know what's going on, specifically replay and expression. But sometimes I'll just sit down with those people and try to, just watch. Try not to ask questions. I try to just observe mostly, because I don't want to interrupt their process. So that when I'm directing or TDing a show and I ask for something, I know where it's going to come from and how I'm going to get it, and if it's even possible. Because you never want to ask for something and be like, hey, font operator, do all this crazy stuff for this one tiny little hit we're going to do one time.
Yeah.
Bust your butt to make this happen for me. Ready, go. Like I hate to do that, but I don't know if I'm asking that until I understand really what is their like process, what's the workflow in that specific station. So I guess to kind of bring it all in, I just like to know how everything works, and that all kind of helps when you're at when you're helming the ship, to know how all the different branches of it are operating, and how to hopefully enable them to work at their most efficient. It's a lot of words.
Most efficient at their most efficient. Yeah, I love that. A seeker of knowledge, a seeker of wisdom, even. Boy. So speaking of wise and wisdom and all that, your Instagram handle is Samwise, right? So I'm assuming you're a Lord of the Rings fan.
Yep. So
if our team is the Fellowship of the Ring,
oh, here we go.
Who are you?
I mean, I'm going to be Samwise because the Lord of the Rings came out when I was in high school, and I had a lot of friends who were very into it, and obviously it was huge. You can't be named Sam without people calling you Samwise. So that was kind of my nickname through most of high school.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So I just kind of kept it. And Samwise is like, he's a great character because he supports, he doesn't judge. He has faith, which I think are all admirable traits. And he doesn't have to be in the spotlight to know that he's important and being useful to what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's Frodo's hero's journey. So like, yeah, I'm pretty satisfied being Samwise.
You've thought this through.
When you spend 20 years,
this is a very well thought out answer.
Spend 20 years thinking about it, you can come up with some ideas, and then it's also better, I feel, to kind of embrace it rather than try to like run away from it, I guess, or shy away. Like, I don't know, like people call me Samwise. I'm like, cool, that's a cool nickname. I can roll with that. When our friend Joe finally convinced me to make this Instagram, this was only, like 2 years ago or so. I just went down the app. I'm like, what am I going to be? I don't know. Samwise AM 17. I like the number 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, threw it in there. Okay, good. But it's funny that you bring that up now. It's just.
All right. So do you throw the ring into the fires of Mount Doom, or do
absolutely.
you not?
No, you throw the ring in.
You throw the ring? Mm-hmm. You throw the ring. All right. Okay. All right. This is a good man. A good man.
Don't be tempted, bro.
Don't be tempted. Don't let it succumb to the temptations. So you are often a TD, or at the very least, you're doing switching. So that puts you in a position of control. Are you like that in your personal life?
What do I like? Control?
Do you like to be in a position of control?
I think most people would say that they like to be, at least in some capacity, in control of what's going on. But I wouldn't say I'm like really OCD or anal about kind of having things be a certain way. Mm-hmm. When it comes to TD, probably my favorite thing about it is, or when I'm directing, is that when I have a particular vision, I can make it happen. And, I just say, hey, I want this shot, I want this replay, bam, bam, and then when it all times out and then you get to that video, on time without interruption, like it's a really cool feeling. So in my regular life, I don't know, I'd say I'm a little bit more casual about things. I'm not really a control freak. I wouldn't say there's a lot of specific things that I want or need.
Mm.
I feel like I'm, I just want to be comfortable. I want to be in good situations. And yeah, I don't feel like I'm, grabbing life by the horns or whatever. I feel like I can kind of coast with it and make stuff happen, where it needs to happen.
You sit back. You avoid the horns. You're in the saddle.
Yeah, I
You
like
got
to
the
be
reins. The reins.
and I like to hold them very casually.
Just hold them very loosely.
Yeah,
Just
hold on
gently.
loosely, but don't let go.
Oh, yeah. If you cling too tightly, you could
You gotta
lose control.
That's what I'm saying.
So you really do bring a sort of a lighthearted, whimsical energy to the team. Do you ever get mad?
Oh yeah,
Do you?
I do.
Really?
I try really hard not to, and when I do, I try not to show it. But yeah, everybody gets upset.
What was the last time at work? I want to know. You don't have to name names, but you can.
We recently did a very high-profile basketball event at T-Mobile Arena. I was the technical director for that show, but not the director. And there was a lot of voices. We have some yellers, which I'm not a yeller, on comms and things, and I try really hard not to cuss unless I'm like making a joke. Like I'm not trying to make people feel like I'm mad at them or that why isn't who did this? I'm not really that kind of who wrapped this cable? Like that's not really my style. But I did get,
That's my style. That is my who wrapped
this
that
cable?
exact thing. Who wrapped this cable? I want a conversation with them. What? Sorry, go on.
Long story short, I'm not very good with multitasking or with lots of different voices trying to appease them in my head. Like I'm good if, the director says, let's do this, stand by this, with this, take this, go. But then when, the director and the producer are kind of at odds, and then stage managers will chime in, and then somebody else in the control room who's not on headset will shout something, and then, somebody holds up a couple of fingers for what is the spot that the clip is in, like all happening at once, that can overwhelm me. And I am willing to admit that it's something I need to work on.
I think that's overwhelming for anyone. Even a veteran is going to, if all that's happening all at once, it means the show isn't as tight as it could be. First of all, it means the lines of communication are not as tight as they probably could be or should be, and that's going to overwhelm anyone. Like, of course, I think you do build up some resilience to that, but that's gonna fuck with anybody. 100%. Like even from the top down to like, not that we're doing small stuff, but I think that's totally natural and like normal.
Yeah, so in this specific situation, I did shout. It was not on headset, but it was like we were doing a celebrity shot, and like I had the font of the other guy. I just didn't know which camera. Like we were going to do two celebrities kind of back to back, and in preview I had one celebrity with the wrong name, and I knew it was the wrong name. And then the other camera was finding this other guy, and then people were like, "No, don't take that." I'm like, "I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it." And I'm like, "I know it's not that guy.
Yeah.
I know that's not Chauncey Billups." Like it was like. Just I know who Chauncey Billups is. That was not him. Like I know, but that was probably the last time. And I guess there is a story here. The first time I got really upset was my very first TD shift. It was for the Vegas Nighthawks. The control room was getting a little loud, and it was my first time calling the shots, cutting the buttons. I'm like trying to make sure I'm doing all the right things. And then there's just kind of like a background chatter in the line behind me. And I kind of got up and I kind of yelled at them. Like, and then I immediately felt horrible. And I'm like, that was not the right way to approach the situation. And then I kind of stewed on it for a while. And then after the game, I went to those guys. I'm like, hey, guys, I'm sorry. That was really not the right way to handle it. I apologize. I shouldn't have, done it in that way. And they were really cool about it. And I still work with all those guys, and we still, we have a good time. And hopefully they don't resent me because it's been a while since then. But that's a really important lesson to learn the first time.
Yeah.
To be like, there's a healthy way to express frustration, and there are unhealthy ways. And then recognizing when you're about to do something in an unhealthy way to make somebody else feel bad, there's better ways to do it. And so just right off the bat, I was like, I'm never going to yell at somebody like that again, because it really wasn't their fault. Like, I was getting flustered and I took it out on somebody. And that's not a good way to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm of two minds of that. First of all, it's production, and tense moments are going to happen. That's kind of like my catchphrase, almost. Like, tense moments will happen. It's production. It just happens. People bump heads. Something's very urgent, and it needs like to be a little bit of urgency in your voice, a little bit of direct communication. So that's first. But also, it's like, hey, like this is not a lunchroom. It's a control room. And sometimes, and I love all the guys we work with. I mean, if you watch, you've heard me say that. But yeah, like sometimes it's chaos, and it's like, it's hard to focus. It can be hard to focus
For sure.
So it's like, I think everybody needs a little, and I think we do that pretty well. It just sometimes it gets out of hand. There's a bit of excitement happening, or something very funny is happening, or whatever. But like, we all do need to have that etiquette of like, like, okay, the moment's over now, like, like lock back in. Let's have some silence. Let's have some focus. Like it's important. So you play a lot of fighting games.
I do.
So I love fighting games. I'm not as much into them anymore because they've become so hardcore. And it's like, I'm going to invest my time in one game or one thing. And competitive gaming is just like so stop and go that it's a little bit difficult for me to like have the drive and motivation to stay in it.
Yeah.
Especially fighting games. I mean, you're doing 3 rounds and then you're back sitting in a lobby waiting, you know what I mean? Whatever, but it's not neither here nor there. So I'm curious to know who your top 3 characters across any game are, and what it is that you would say like draws you to that genre of game.
So yes, I've been a big fan of fighting games since late high school. I had a friend in Washington who was very, very good and very competitive, and he mostly played Tekken, but he would bring me to things like Tekken is where he landed, but we built our way up with Street Fighter. So Third Strike was kind of post, like Third Strike came out in like the 90s, and then there was this big kind of dead period until Street Fighter 4 came out. And in the middle of that, we were playing Third Strike, which was my first game that I went out and found people in like a different city through like online message boards and stuff. Like, they're like, hey, we're meeting up at this guy's house at this address on Sunday at 1:00. It's open.
Oh, wow. That's pretty hardcore.
Bring your own stick. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go do this. And Third Strike was the first one to get me into that. And I mostly, like, my friend was very, very good. He was like number 2 in the state at Tekken 5 for a long time, like played in competitive tournaments. And I mostly kind of rode his coattails. Like he would train me, and I would try to use what I learned against other people in the community. I was never
straight wash him.
I mean, I did okay. I wasn't like amazing. I really didn't hit my stride until Street Fighter 4 came out, and I discovered my number 1 fighting game character of all time, EDMOND HONDA.
Edmund Honda. Don't ever forget that E is for Edmund. All right.
Big man.
Don't ever forget that. What's up, man? That's Mike. Mike, this is
Mike. How you doing, bro? Nice to meet you. Mike's
walking through. Anyway, yeah, don't ever disrespect the name of the hallowed name of Edmond Honda.
Yeah, so E Honda, just he's so fun. Like, he's just goofy. His backstory in Street Fighter 4 is like he's trying to open a restaurant, and he's fighting people to like learn the spice of life that he can add to his cooking. Like, totally nonsensical.
Is that what it was? I thought it was, the story was he owned a bathhouse, and he's super passionate about bathing.
He is, and I think it depends on where in the timeline. I'm not super great at Street Fighter canon, but like the order that the games are numbered in is not actually the number that they happen in chronologically. And I don't remember.
Is that true?
So like Street Fighter Alpha is like way at the beginning.
Well, yeah, Alpha is
then
like
there's
the
like
prequel.
Street Fighter 1, and then it gets a little muddy, whether it's like Street Fighter 3 and then 4, or 4 and then 3 and then 2. Like, I don't know. The canon is all goofy. Just from what I remember of Street Fighter 4, which is not perfect memory, Honda was trying to do a restaurant. But I just like, he does like silly dances when he comes in, when he flies at you, he's like, oh, sure. It's just like, he's having a great time. And whenever he
Yeah.
wins or loses, he's got great quotes, some really ridiculous facial expressions. Just immediately, the first time he has this move called Ochio throw, where you grab him and you slam him down, and then he just kind of sits on him.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the best move ever. Like, I love this. Everything else is just kind of gravy. So I play Honda in every version of Street Fighter that he's in. Street Fighter 6 is most recently, and Honda's not very good, but he sure is fun. I wouldn't say that I'm a super competitive guy, but there's something about playing a fighting game where it's like there's knowledge involved, there's timing, there's experience, there's just so much to learn that you could play a fighting game, for years and years and years and not experience everything there is to experience it. Which, now that I'm talking about it, kind of makes me think of like, why I like to learn different instruments in different spots in the control room. Like, it's all kind of just you're always expanding. There's always more to learn that you don't know.
Yeah.
And there's always stuff to realize that you don't know after someone teaches you a lesson with it. And it's never more apparent than in a fighting game where you're like, what did that guy just do?
Yeah.
And your mind is just blown, and you hit the lab and you're like, I gotta figure out how to do that. I gotta figure out how to beat that, and then you just add it to the vocabulary, add it to the arsenal. I like the term vocabulary. That was in college. I studied jazz, and then learning little riffs or little licks, is just like, remember that, and then you can do it in this key or whatever. Just add it to your vocabulary, and like that's kind of how I think of like, fighting game knowledge and control room terms. Literally vocabulary, but also what does replay do, and how do we get the thing to happen, and how do I make this clip play?
Yeah.
All just part of the vocabulary.
And it's problem solving on the fly too. Like you have this set of tools. You learn the move set. You have this set of tools, and then you have to determine how to solve this problem in front of you in real time. Someone who's actively trying to
ruin your day.
ruin your day. Yeah. Just like production is actively trying to ruin your day, and all it is us trying to solve those problems.
Yeah, I guess, now that you mention it, there are kind of a lot of parallels that I didn't really think about until this very moment. But yeah, fighting games are cool. I highly recommend them to anybody who, has a passing interest in competition or in, beating your friend's ass at something. Like, play some Tekken. I was playing Tekken this morning before I came over here.
Yeah, I got to say, man, I love competing with my friends. That's how me and my close friends now became so close, is we kind of like, competition is not the right word, but for all intents and purposes, we competed with each other in creating music, like we would I felt like we were kind of in a cycle of like just doing stuff to try and impress each other and like top each other. Like we'd hear like, we all make hip hop music and beats, and we all rap and write and all of that stuff. And so it's like, we would hear something like, Kurt would come in and play a beat or like play a verse, and I'd be like, oh man, that's fucking sick. I gotta do something better. I gotta top that, like or at least I gotta match that, And it's like, there's nothing more fun than like competing with your friends, as far as I'm concerned, because it's like, it's people you like and respect, and you want to like see where you stand. And then like when people surprise you, it's like delightful, because it's your friends. So you want to see them do well. And, there's a lot of that joy in fighting games too. It's just hard to find people that are at this point, like willing to dedicate the time and the energy. Because it does take time.
It's a big investment for sure. If you want to actually get good.
Yeah. If you want to get good.
It's not easy.
That's a hot phrase there, get good. As a fan of the Dark Souls and Elden Ring.
Yeah, I was admiring your
series,
posters.
Yeah, they're up there. You'll never see them. But they're there. So, when Jeremy Feltz is out of town, legendary director for the Seattle Supersonics and Seattle Storm, and currently in Vegas, he works for the Raiders, all that good stuff. You are the guy that fills that chair.
For the Aces this season specifically.
For the Aces, but also at Least Family Forum for those teams. Mm-hmm. Is that a lot of pressure? Is that are those hard shoes to fill?
Yeah. So props to Jeremy making a big move from Seattle down here, to kind of, jump into the unknown, but he's got such a great skill list, that he's come in and he's slotted right in. And, I feel like whenever he's on the show, you can feel pretty confident that things are going to go fine.
Yeah.
He's going to keep people in line and like, keep a calming presence. It takes a lot to get Jeremy flustered, and I've seen it, and sometimes when it's just us together, he'll like say something to me off comms and I'm like, yeah, bro, I feel you. Like,
yeah,
what are they doing?
Yeah.
But it's been aces specifically, because that's been the main thing. I've learned a lot from Jeremy. How to cut, what kind of, I see the angles that he likes to take. I see the replays that he likes to take and how he likes to fill the timing. And I don't do everything exactly the way he does. I've got my own way that I kind of like to cut and stuff, but I wouldn't have gotten to the point where I could comfortably do that without his mentorship and guidance in that, in this whole journey of becoming a TD and a director. And that said, it was real stressful because I think it might have been the first time I did aces by myself was 2023, like opening day, when they raised the banner and they did the rings. And I was like, oh my God, like this is like, why am I doing this show? Like I'm just some noob, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to, do more of this particular job. And like, okay, well, here's the banner.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
the
okay.
banner raising ceremony, which is a very prestigious show. It's on, a variety of news networks often. Like if a team has won the championship, aside from the actual finals, that first game where they do the banner raising is very important, very, very significant. In fact, the team that worked the Golden Knights banner raising ceremony this year in 2024 is an Emmy. That show was an Emmy Award winning show. So just if you're watching, give you a little context on why that is, why that's a high pressure deal, why that's important.
And so that one was back-to-back days. It was like Saturday was the banner and Sunday was the rings presentation or something like that. It was they weren't the same game, and it was like, but that was without Jeremy, and that was just, we had not split up the director and technical director roles at that point.
Right. So you're doing both. So you're switching and
calling
you're calling
cameras, talking to the producer, hitting the buttons to make everything happen. And
that's a lot.
It is a lot. I'm grateful that they split it up. Because while it's definitely doable, there are always points in the show where something is happening and we're trying to find celebrities or we're trying to set up something for later, and just the timing is very difficult.
It suffers. The show suffers at those choke points because there's not enough bandwidth.
Yeah. So having two different people fill that role helps a lot. And that very first banner raising ceremony was definitely very, very stressful. But you kind of get into a rhythm. Like the hard part is the pregame. You do the ceremony, you do the runouts, and then you're shooting basketball. And then it's like you can kind of take a breath.
Yeah, you can relax a little bit after that.
Because then this year they also had me directing the second banner raising ceremony, not technical directing, just directing. Because I believe Jeremy was either in Africa or he was on vacation. He went on a cruise or something. In the middle of his Africa trip, so he's a very worldly man, that Jeremy Phillips.
Very worldly guy, yes, we determined that.
Yeah, great episode. He was out of town, so it fell to me to direct, and tell our technical director what to do and what to cut, what their cameras, what to show. Definitely a lot less stressful the second time. But yeah, whenever Jeremy's not around, it has been me. I don't have a ton of experience directing without cutting the show. Like most of my experience has been doing both jobs. So that first time, I believe it was actually at the Desert Dogs, where I was directing and I had a different TD. Like I had to kind of sit back and put my hands, I've got my gloves on and I'm holding back and I'm like, don't push any buttons.
Yeah.
Sit on my hands a little bit.
Yeah.
Just hey, I need, try not to reach. It took me a couple of reps to just be like, it's okay. I'm just talking.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the multi-view. I'm seeing this shot. I'm like, hey, RF, I actually need this. And then camera one, can you give me a shot at the banner? And then take 3, and now I've realized that I actually really like directing. Doing both at the same time is a little bit more stress and you're in control of it. But I find that, I only have X amount of bandwidth. And if I'm doing both jobs at the same time, I tend to make more mistakes than if I'm doing just one or the other.
Right. Of course.
And directing is just, there's like I said earlier, there's something so cool about just having a vision and then talking it out with people and then seeing it come to life on the screen. And, you hit your timings and everything works out. And it's just like that, there's a very gratifying, feeling of satisfaction when you pull off, a couple of hero shots into the replay and it goes right into this next hype video. You're like, oh, I got it. Like,
hell yeah, man.
It's a great feeling.
Hell yeah, that's fun, man. That is fun. When the show goes well, everybody's happy, man. We like everybody's having a good time. When the show goes poorly, nobody's in a good mood at all. Everybody's upset. And we hate to see that. But
hate to see it.
That's those shows are few and far between. I think our team kind of kills it like pretty effortlessly. It's a big testament to like the talent of everybody on the team. And I always give credit back to Katie. Katie's very good at picking people, man. She just knows. She's great at that. Like these teams she's put together
backpack
with very few exceptions. The jewelry is on the championship jewelry. This old thing. this man has brought out the championship Golden Knights Vegas Golden Knights championship ring. In case you don't know, Stanley Cup winning finalists, champions with rings. Shout out to everybody that got a ring. I didn't get one, so I'm still new on the team. I'm not bitter. I'm fine.
I was honestly surprised, and a little bit blown away that they would even think of me.
No, it's a very cool thing that organization does. Is they ring you up. They ring you up.
Yeah.
You gotta love that. You gotta love getting ringed up.
It'd be cool if we could do it again sometime. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No expectations. Even if assuming we can win another cup. Like I'm not assuming that I'm going to get another ring, but
yeah,
it sure was cool and a huge honor, and definitely a highlight of my professional sports career. To get a ring. It's just like.
Speaking of things that sure are cool, you do wear like biker / Eminem rapping gloves when you direct. What's going on? What's going on, Sam? Explain that to me.
I mean, that's not how I would describe them. I just, my hands are like this. The buildings get cold, and I have fingerless gloves that go up to this first knuckle because I still need my fingers to push the buttons, and then when I'm at Golden Knights, I'm basically just on a computer with a mouse and keyboard.
Touch
I need to be able to feel it, and get the response that I need. If they're covered up, I don't know.
If you can't feel it, then it's not. Is
it really happening?
Yeah, is it really? What is time really?
So yeah, when it's time to work, gloves come on, hat comes on, headset goes on top, and we're ready to go.
Yeah, the hat. The hat is like the blinders, right? The hat dials you into your kind of keeps you focused.
It's equal parts blinders, and also sometimes the headphones just kind of hurt my head. So I like to have just a little buffer of something in between, to protect my delicate scalp.
The crown, protect the crown. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. They
Indeed.
say. So I've developed I really was never much of a hat guy, or I was back in the day, and then I stopped wearing hats for altogether. But I've kind of developed an enjoyment from wearing a hat on production too, because it does just that for me. It keeps me dialed in on what I'm looking at, but also sometimes when I'm out there and there's so many people, I feel a little exposed. I feel like I can't break the line of sight to my eyes and what I'm thinking, what I'm doing. So if I have a low hat on, and all I gotta do is tilt my head down a little bit, and then you can't, it's harder to see and read what's going on in my head, I guess. And it's probably not really doing this, but it's just a mental, for me, it feels like I have a little bit more privacy out there when, you're out there with 18,000 fans.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it's not like they're all looking at me, they're looking at the game, but I am out there. So yeah, I've also developed an affinity for headgear. You know?
Yeah, in the control room, we've got, a dozen people with extras, like,
Yeah.
7 operators and then a producer or a guest or an engineer or whatever. So like I'm usually not thinking too much about the people around me, but then I look down at the bowl and I'm like, oh my God, like look at all those people. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine, sitting on the floor for that high profile basketball game, and here comes LeBron or Steph, and you're like, I don't know. And I'm watching, your camera shot of them coming into your frame, and I'm like, oh my God, like it's a little starstruck, and they're not this close to me.
No big
they're
deal.
way down there, but just like looking through literally through your eyes, through your lens.
Yeah.
And just being like, wow, like that's crazy.
Man, I got to tell you, I not to like, this is not a flex. This is the truth. I am totally desensitized to being around celebrities because the excitement of it, you're almost not allowed to be excited about it. You can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You can't talk to them. Not that I'm kind of the mind of like the nicest thing you can do for a celebrity is leave them the fuck alone and just look at them and go, oh, cool. There's so-and-so. And like, maybe send a text like, yo, I just walked past I was at the Win. I walked past Lil Baby, like this close to the rapper. He was this close to me. And, I did look at him. Maybe see if maybe there's some eye contact. But, I'm not going to go over there and bother the guy. Yeah. I texted a couple friends like, yo, I just walked past Lil Baby. That's dope. Like, that's enough for me. But cool story about that, though. That actually paid off.
Looking at Lil Baby?
Yeah, not. Because I, as a kid, was a massive fan of Coolio. Rest in peace. He passed away, right?
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Massive Coolio fan. I wanted the album. I think the album is Gangsta's Paradise. I think that's the name of the album. I wanted that album so badly. My mother wouldn't buy it for me because it was explicit lyrics. But I fucking loved Coolio. So one day I'm working an event at the old, I believe it used to be called Vinyl. It's a music hall at the former Hard Rock Hotel, which is now the Virgin Hotel. Mm-hmm. Now I'm walking back to the parking garage, and who's walking at me but Coolio? And he's with some beautiful woman. And I didn't notice him. So I look up, and I look at him, and he's looking at me, and I go, like this, and he looks at me, and he goes, as if to say, yeah, it's me. Sweet. And I was like, yo. And we kind of had that moment, and we just kept walking, and I was like, that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Yay, we did it. Cool. We were acknowledged by Coolio. Yes.
So you remember how my first album? You remember how my first album was Will Smith?
Yes.
So I worked in a corporate event at the Cosmopolitan. Will Smith was hosting I believe it was a birthday party for his mother. This was probably 8 years ago at in the Chelsea Theater in the Cosmopolitan. And then obviously Will Smith is there. He's giving a little speech. And then after the show, we're kind of tearing down. And then Will Smith comes up to our tech area, and there's probably a half dozen of us, video, audio, camera guys, and he's just like, hey, you guys want pictures?
Oh, hell yeah.
And I was like, what? And he one-on-one, he's like, the A1 came up and they took a picture.
Oh, how cool.
The A2 came up, they took a picture. He looks right at me, he's like, hey man, you want a picture? And I was like,
yeah.
I'm wearing like a suit and stuff because it's supposed to be formal in that particular environment. I'm like, wow, what a cool thing to do.
And you'll have that forever, Come to find out you deleted it, it's gone. You don't know. I think
it's on my Facebook, and I don't particularly use Facebook much anymore, but I believe it's archived there somewhere.
You should send me that picture, and that picture should be the thumbnail for this.
Oh man, I'll see if I can drag it
you and Will Smith. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, with the celebrity thing, like you never know. Like, I also think of this one time I was doing it was one of the very first gigs I ever did in Vegas. It was like an overnight strike at the MGM Grand Garden. Justin Timberlake was performing, and we were tearing down his set. And then there's just it's like midnight, and there's 20 of us stagehands in the backstage, and JT comes out, and he's like, he just finished his encore. He's like going back to his room, and he's like, just kind of walks past. He's like, hey guys, how you doing? And we're all just kind of look at each other, and he like stops, and he's like, yeah, I'm talking to you guys. How you doing? We're all like, oh, hi. cool. Yeah. Great show, man. We're happy to strike your thing. And he's like, he just kind of smiles and goes, because there's definitely been other celebrities who have that opportunity and don't.
Yeah.
I've worked with not worked with, but done shows for a few that, the talent comes backstage, doesn't look at anybody, just goes back to his room, and more power to him. Just did a big show, no judgment, but when they take the time to acknowledge, that's pretty cool. And you don't always expect it, and it can definitely change your opinion on people.
Absolutely, and it's fun, man, because you have that interaction. You can cherish that. You didn't have to force it. You didn't have to go like try and pull it out of them. Like they came over, they said hello. Like that's like that you can't beat that. I have one more story like that since we're on this. Eli Manning is another like superhero of mine, like superhero of mine. I've been in
Super Bowl or two for the Giants.
I've been in more drunk arguments about defending Eli Manning's honor than any other thing. Like there's no faster way to get me riled up than like, let's talk about Eli Manning. So I'm working for Caesars Entertainment at the time, and he and Peyton Manning are going to do the Super Bowl, the show. They're just like, it's a Super Bowl watch party. Peyton and Eli are kind of on the stage. The game's being played live, and they're giving like commentary, and
was
the
this
crowd's
like
there.
Pre-Manning cast, like that they put on ESPN?
This is around the same time. So I'm filming this. So I'm backstage with Peyton and Eli, and Eli's right there, and I'm like, oh my god! And like these guys, like like when you see them, they're smiley, they're talkative. These guys are stone ice cold, like the stone cold, the straight faces, no nonsense, looking like they probably don't want to be there, which I don't blame them. Like, why would you want to be in this room full of 7-star casino people who could give a shit whether you're there? No offense. And I'm sure they were paid handsomely to be there, and I'm sure it's also part of the contract they have with Caesar Sports, whatever. Neither here nor there. So I'm backstage with them. I lead them down the hallway backwards. I'm walking backwards with a camera on a gimbal. I'm leading the Manning brothers down this back of house hallway and out to the backstage. And then I'm gonna get the shot of them walking out on stage. So I'm standing like I'm almost shoulder to shoulder with Eli Manning. He's right there, and I'm here with my camera, and I'm just totally quiet. And I'm like, and it's against my policy to talk to these people. I have a very, very firm like thought about that, like value about that. But I'm like, it's just Eli Manning. He's right here. I'm never gonna get a chance again to talk to him. The moment's approaching. They're about to go out. I'm like, the window's closing. So I'm like, all right, I know what to say. So I said to him, I was like, have a good show, Mr. Manning. And he looked at me and he was like, thank you. And I was like, yes, I talked to Eli Manning. Let's go.
Check that one off the bucket list.
So that's it. So we're best friends, me and Eli Manning now.
Of course, that
is the God's honest truth. I would never lie to you. Not about something like that.
Only the truth.
Yeah.
Nothing but the truth.
Yeah. So we talked to some stressful stuff, maybe some troubleshooting, some, tensions rising. What would you say is a worst case scenario that has like come to life when you're at work, or a nightmare scenario? Is there anything notable you can think of?
Well, I wouldn't say the worst case scenario has come to fruition, but there's a couple of situations where like one big piece of it has fried. I'm thinking of specifically, we had an Aces game a couple of weeks back where the RF camera died in the tunnel. And
died or lost
signal.
Okay.
The shot was hot on screen, and then it went to the the off screen where it just has like the logo.
Oh, the Hollyland thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And like that was like mid shot, and then we're like, oh god, like what do we do? Like the
Wait
RF.
A second. So that sounds to me like the camera died then.
I think it was the day that like the receiver was in a different location than normal, and it was being blocked by the Nitron, perhaps, or the board in Michelob Ultra.
Yeah.
Because as you know, like the RF is our bridge shot. We have 3 big shots where the players run out. One is a static RoboCam where they just kind of run past it. Then the RF picks them up as they run by. And then there's a camera out there who picks them up when they have, the fire going off and all the pyro. And we just...
That's my shot. That's
the RF shot.
Not bragging.
Fire?
That is my shot.
Hell yeah.
Anyway.
Great shot. And honestly, well, I don't want to get too many tangents. But it was just one opening, and it happens live. We're in the middle. Jackie's running out, and then camera goes out. You're like, oh God, camera 3. All right, camera 3 goes up. Like, all right, so we're just going to hit the robo. They run past it. We're going to let it linger a little bit. We're going to hit camera 3 real early. And then they're just kind of, nothing's happening. The next player runs out and then the fire goes off. So it's not the worst thing that could possibly have happened. But it's like whenever, I haven't had everything shut down at once, but like if you lose camera or, you know, our clips machines at Aces are notoriously finicky. And I've had issues from sometimes like the audio doesn't come through or it gets distorted, or there'll be like this weird artifacting where like it's in a different, I mean, I'm not a
Wait, you're telling me things go wrong
guy.
at Michelob Ultra Arena?
You know,
That can't be.
on the occasion.
I can never imagine that.
And then, you know, our operators have learned that there are certain moments where, or certain times in the show where just if you restart it, usually we're good, you know, but then even with the best of knowledge and intentions, sometimes things still go wrong where,
Yeah.
you know, we start the intro video and then suddenly it goes from its normal 16:9 format to like 16:5. Like it just goes like,
Really?
and then it's like a, like this massive
Cropped.
letterboxing happening.
Yeah.
That, and just didn't happen in rehearsal. Didn't
Right.
happen last game. Doesn't happen on the next game. Happened this game.
Yeah. Weird.
You know, and then you just kind of like, there's nothing you can do about it. And you're just like clenching, just
Stuck.
like, oh my God, like we just have to let it run. Like we can't start it over.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
Yeah, start. All right, wait, guys.
Lights
hang
back
on,
up.
everybody. Hang
Let's
on. One more
reset the
time.
pyro.
Yeah.
TV, just we need 2 minutes back.
Yeah.
You know, before we start the broadcast, we'll start at 7:04 instead of 7:02. Okay.
Yeah.
And go.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it just doesn't work that way. But that, you know, it's the nature of live anything.
Yeah.
You know, is that sometimes things go a little crazy and you just got to figure out how to make it happen on the spot. You do the best with what you can. And then, you know, if you're in a position to influence what the solutions are, you know, hopefully you have something in mind, you know, because it like you wouldn't want a director to be in that position and not have some idea of how they can coordinate to, you know, if that camera goes down or that clip breaks, you know, your normal solutions may not apply because you have to have something right now.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no time to go and like, oh, I'm just going to go fiddle with some settings and go under the hood. Like you just have to fix it or at least find a workaround on the spot. And that can be stressful, but it can also be really satisfying where like, there's a problem.
Hell yeah.
But you figure it out and you do something that makes it work and no one notices.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
You've got somebody in the stands. You're like, hey, did you see when this happened? And they're like, no, I didn't notice a thing. Because, you know, that people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And that, you know, no one is ever as critical of how our show looks than we are.
Yes.
Because we know exactly how it's supposed to look. And when things go wrong, we notice and we can call them out. But your average fan, or even your experienced fans, sometimes don't even see it because they're not always, maybe they're not looking at the board the whole time. Maybe they're looking at the player actually physically running out. And then they look up and they see the fire shot and they're like, cool. And they look away and then the camera dies and they don't know because they're not looking at it. But just the stress is in the nature of doing live production and then just not letting it get to you or figuring out how to, you know, deal with it in a positive way. The show must go on type situation. You know, it's very important.
It must.
It must.
You know, and that, Sam, that is why I run. That is why I fucking hustle, man. Like, so I forget who it was made.
No one gets more steps than you.
They're like, oh yeah, Rob's always running or something like that. It's like, you know why? Because there's no better feeling than you're hearing like, you know, 10 seconds and then someone's like across the way or you got to run up the stairs or whatever.
Farm.
And then you get there and then bang, they take the shot and like no one knows that all went down. It all went down without a hitch. Like I love that feeling, man. The thing I will never, ever, ever forget, and I can't really, it's kind of hard to quantify because I experienced it alone, you know, no one, unless anybody was watching the screen this day, but I'm at T-Mobile. We're shooting VGK. I'm the second RF camera. I have a hit in a VIP box for some women group. I forget if it was like a awareness for something or I forget what it was, but they're up in a VIP box and I totally forget I got this hit. So I am literally across this on the opposite side of the long way. I'm the opposite side of T-Mobile Arena and I hear Cortland in my headset. He's like, hey man, are you on the way to that VIP room? and I realize I have a minute and 20 seconds to get there. And I take off running full speed. I'm sprinting with this camera, with the big boy, big camera. This camera's at least 20 pounds. Not to mention I have a compact on my waist and a headset, and you can lose that. I've done that. I've lost them while running.
Oh, no.
So now I'm like more cognizant of like keeping it on my hip as I'm running. Bro, I fucking put the jets and got to that goddamn fucking VIP room.
Hell yeah.
I'm running up and down stairs. I run through the crowd. Like I'm on the promenade or what's it called?
Like the concourse?
The concourse. Running through fans.
It's always packed.
Weaving through fans. I make it over to the stairs. I jet up the stairs. Someone's in the staircase already waiting for me. She's like, are you? And I'm like, yeah, me. And she's like, okay, come with me. So we run up there. I get out there. Then I have to go to like the corner of the VIP box. Basically, I'm hanging out of the thing over the open.
Oh, because they put you in the front.
Yeah.
And then,
because everybody's facing this way.
Yeah.
I frame up the shot. I get all the women in the shots, a big group of women, probably 20-something women, get them all in the shot. And like right as I frame up, bang, they take the shot. And I was like,
stay by RF, take RF.
So relieved to get it, but also like that feeling, man. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that. So speaking of highlights, what would you say thus far is the notable highlight of your career?
Well, I'd have to think about that a little bit.
Oh, I see what he did. There. You see what he did there?
Winning. So it's game 5, Stanley Cup final. We're at home. I'm in my usual spot. And for the viewers that don't know, I feel silly saying that, but for context, my spot for Golden Knights is above the press box, and I look out a window. There's like my computer's right here. I look out a window and I just see the whole bowl. Yeah. I'm camera side, so like the logo is upright for me. I see everything that happens. I see and we're it's the final score is 9-3. So like, but everyone is so superstitious at Golden Knights that you don't say anything. You don't be like, oh my God, guys, look like we're gonna win.
Yeah,
like there was no way we were going to lose that game, but you don't say it because you don't want to put it out there.
Yeah.
I literally had graphics for the ribbons that I hadn't even seen yet. And they told me, don't even build this button, until like the thing's over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I have to at least have a
have to have it
couple
beforehand,
minutes.
yeah.
Like, I just need to have it, not at zeros, but like, looking out. And then we, our producer says on headset, like, we fucking did it, guys. And then it's just like, my comm's not hot, but I'm like tearing up, the whole control room, the vibes are crazy positive. Like everyone is just like, the thing I love most, I think, about working for Golden Knights is that everybody's a fan. Like in the control room, we all want the team to succeed, not only because, if we get some playoff games, like that's more work, but also like, we just they're our team and we want them to win.
Yeah. It's about the best skin in the game you could possibly have is you work with the team. It makes it very easy to be a fan, if you weren't already.
So it feels like their success is your success.
Yeah.
And obviously we're not down there on the ice. We're part of the presentation. We're trying to, make the crowd get into it. Hopefully the crowd can influence the players to play hard and, get positive vibes. But just like in that control room and on headset, like, when you win the cup like that, like it was, I will never forget how good that felt. And just like, I'm not like a super crying kind of guy, but I'll admit, I was like, oh my God, guys, we won the cup. Like it was so cool. And then, everyone's like cheering and, we still got a show to do. Like we've got a post game, like things not over, but we're all just kind of like, trying to rein it in as much as possible. But then like after our stuff is all done and then we're just kind of going around the control room, everybody's hugging each other. Everybody's giving high fives, everyone's kind of getting a little raspy in the throat. Like it's just such an amazing, amazing feeling. That, you never know if you're going to experience that again.
Yeah.
Could
be once in a lifetime.
Even as a fan, like your team is not going to win every year. Like, I don't know. So I'm a Seattle guy. Seahawks are my team. And when they won the Super Bowl, we just kind
what's
of mass.
going on? Why? What's with all the Seattle people? Like half the people that have been on the show from Seattle.
I know. I just
Get out of here. Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm deleting this.
Whatever. We beat the Patriots. I thought you'd be happy that we beat the Patriots.
No, I do. I
guess we lost to the Patriots. We beat the Broncos.
I like the Seahawks. I do like the Seahawks.
I like to retcon all that so I don't look like an idiot.
Just retcon.
We played the Broncos.
Yeah.
Your boy Peyton.
Yeah.
Pretty big shellacking. But even winning the Super Bowl, just as a fan watching on TV, like that felt good.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cool. But then the next day I'm like, okay, now this is the next winning, being in the building when you win the Stanley Cup final and being, a part of, because I was a fan before I was a member of the team, and I brought, I didn't know anything about hockey until the Golden Knights went to the Stanley Cup final the first, year one.
Yeah.
And then I started watching and I still really didn't have any idea what was happening. But like that, that was opening the door to hockey. But then, 6 years later to be working for the team and to win the whole thing at home, just with all those people who just give so much to the team and to the organization, like
huge,
all time highlight. Just, I don't even know if we won again, if you could replicate the first time that happens. Like it's just indescribable almost.
That's pretty great, man. I mean, I had a feeling that you were going to go there, and rightly so. It's such a cool moment to be able to celebrate that, especially it's a new team, especially with all the hard work that goes into the show. I mean, it could be a great show and an awful team. So it's like it's amazing that those things come together and coalesced and bloomed into this lovely golden rose of victory. I got them all for you today.
It was sweet, man.
So, all right, brother. So I got one more thing for you. So for the kids coming up, the youth, what would you say to someone who wants to be a director or a technical director or a camera operator for a world championship sports team in their city?
So on a broad scale, I'm sure you've heard that phrase, luck is opportunity meets preparation or something along those lines.
Yeah. That's like my whole life. My whole life is that form of luck.
And that was absolutely how I got started in sports. I just had some knowledge, had some skills, happened to do a show, right place, right time. The guy was, if you know Johnny Greco, who is one of the, the founding, created the show of Golden Knights. He did a thing at a place I was working, and he gave me his card. And I said, the next day I said, how do I become a part of this? And then, the rest is kind of history. So, so just never stop learning. Always be absorbing things, even if maybe it doesn't seem like it's relevant to you. Like if you're a video guy, there's still something to be learned about what's happening from the A2, who's got to go and put the mic in the right spot for people, or, from how the projection works or how the lighting interacts with the videos that are playing. Like never stop learning. And then the other thing, kind of a personal mentality of mine, is to always appreciate what you have, but to stay hungry. Like some people,
I like that.
Some people find, they get that job that pays what they need and covers, they've got a family and they need
sit tight. And
it works for them, but it's never been something. I've never had like a dream job that once I get to this position, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like it's always like, how do I get to the next step, in my professional career? And then what is the next step beyond that? And how do I get there? And then what does, not to say that I'm not really happy with where I am and, how, like I'm in a position right now that I'd never have dreamed in a million years that I would be doing what I'm doing right now. Just was really lucky. Had learned a lot of things, and then right place, right time. And then I never settled for whatever I was in. Like there's always something new to do, something new to learn, that I obviously that's been like a recurring theme in our little interview that, I'm like learning about myself. But yeah, appreciate what you have, but stay hungry.
I love that, man. All right, Sam, please share anything, share your socials or anything that you're working on that you'd like people to check out.
Well, I'm not exactly Instagram super savvy.
Mm.
I do have an Instagram at SamWiseIam17. I'm on LinkedIn. I believe it's just my name. Obviously, I'm really good at the social media stuff.
Yeah.
Sam Helmer. What am I working on? It's the slow season, so just getting ready to watch some Olympic basketball.
Yeah.
Hope the ladies can take it all. And
hell yeah, man.
We'll be back. I think what is it? August 16th or 17th is our next home game for the Aces at Michelob Ultra.
Mm.
And yeah, hopefully we are playing for a third championship. That'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
Oh man. Oh, please. I hope so hard. My thing is like, all right, everybody was like, so like, all right, the 3-peat is a given and all that. And that made me so nervous that people were doing that. And then when we started out and we were struggling, I was like, oh, you see, this is why you don't count your chickens before they're hatched.
Yes, sir.
And so we have a rough season coming up. And I don't know if you saw this, there's a clip of Kelsey Plum that went viral. She's like, someone asked her like, oh, if the Aces were like, everybody thought the Aces were cooked at first. And she was like, cooked?
I feel like I saw somebody post that. I didn't have the audio on, but like,
that's the funniest shit. But like what she said is true. One of the things she said, you should watch it. If you haven't watched it, just find it. It's great. She says that just Google like Kelsey Plum, cooked cornbread or cake or whatever. It's a very funny clip. But one of the things she did say that I totally agree with is it's a testament to like how good the league has gotten. Even from last year to this year, like, so much great talent is coming to the league and things, movements have been made and teams are stepping it up and all that stuff because, the Aces have a lot to do with it because they were a straight up powerhouse last season. Like they were just unstoppable. And so I think that they kind of like skill checked the league a little bit. Like, hey, this is where this is the bar. And I think to the WNBA's credit, like a lot of teams have raised the bar in their own organizations. So we have a tough season ahead and I'm nervous, but I think we're going to do great because we have a great team and we put on a great show. And a lot of that is in part to you, Sam. So thank you so much for your hard work and thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah, man. That was a good one. I think we did it.
We did it.
We did it.
I have to think about that.